Hello, guys. Thank you for spending your precious time with me today, and it's an honor to be invited to speak and be part of this women tech makers breakout group. So let me start my talk with a little story. So in 2011, sorry, I didn't realize I was still on mute. Let me backtrack. All right. Hello, guys. Again, I'm Chicky, and I'm really thankful that you are spending your precious time with me. And I'm really honored to be invited to speak in this Women in Tech Makers group. So let me start my talk with a little story about me. So in 2011, I landed in Kuwait to work as a nurse. So at that time, I was actually the envy of my peers because I just recently graduated and I was already offered a work overseas. In my contract, it was stated there that I'd be paid almost 5 times compared to a regular nurse's salary here in the Philippines. I have food allowance, I have housing allowance. And in Kuwait, there was no personal income tax. So basically, if I do earn, I get to keep the full amount of my salary. And then fast forward 3 months into working, basically my employer didn't honor our contract. So for the first 3 months, I didn't have food allowance, I didn't have housing allowance, and I wasn't paid for the first 3 months that I was in Kuwait. Imagine that. And to make matters worse, she or my employer also held on to my passport. So even if I wanted to go back to the Philippines, I couldn't. And kind of like the cherry, it's not a cherry, but to top it all, my boyfriend at that time, who was based in the Philippines, actually died of leukemia. So imagine that in the first 3 months, all of those happened. And that was really like a really, really low point in my life. I don't know if you've experienced this wherein you are kind of like you're not like you're not gonna commit suicide, but if somebody kills you or you get into a fatal accident, you'll be fine with it. Like that's how hopeless I felt at that time. And I started questioning God. That was like my first reaction. I started questioning God, like, why me? I worked my butt off. I was an achiever in school. I aced all my exams. I even went through the whole legal process of applying for work overseas. Like, why me? What did I do wrong? And in my head, I said I did everything right. But the more I introspect, yes, I did everything right, but did I actually do the right things? That was the question that I have in mind. So that led me to months of, again, introspection. And that was 2011. October of that year, Steve Jobs died. And I remember for the first time seeing his speech at Stanford University. And one line that really stood out for me was this: you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them backwards. So fast forward 8 years later, last year in 2019, I actually got my first recognition as a UX designer. And that is what I want to share with you today, to share my journey to UX. Um, Before I continue, I want to share a bit of a disclaimer, advice disclaimer. So I actually got this from somebody in the tech industry. He's actually a co-founder of Figma. It's Dylan Field, and Dylan said he got this advice too when he was first starting out. He said, when somebody gives you advice, they're giving themselves advice in your shoes. So what I got from that is like always filter advice. Everyone, including me, is um, prone to bias. So always practice healthy skepticism. All right, let's move on. All right, so if there's one concept I want you to take from my talk, this would be it. The 3 C's. So what are the 3 C's? It's part of the title of the talk. It's contemplate, connect, and create. So let's first talk about the first C, contemplate. So contemplate basically is getting to really know yourself. On Beyonce's documentary, she said there, you have to fight yourself in order to find yourself. I think that's really powerful. And one thing to contemplate about is really getting to know your why. Why are you doing things? What drives you? Why you want to succeed? So for me, it didn't really come right away. It took me almost 2 years to finally figure out what's my big why. And that was to be the best ate in the world, the best sister in the world. I love my siblings dearly. Both of our parents work overseas when we were growing up. So my siblings were my source of strength and also my source of happiness. And I just really want to give back to them in a way like supporting them or guiding them. I was also put in a special position in life wherein I was the eldest female cousin in my mom's side of the family. And I was also the eldest among my childhood friends. And I'm a big believer that nothing happens as a coincidence. Everything happens for a reason. And I feel like the reason I was put in that position in life is because I have the responsibility to guide and kind of like set the path for kind of like the younger generations, which are again my siblings, um, my cousins, and my younger friends. So you might be thinking now, like, Chiki, what's like the practical application of your advice in the tech world or in my transition to UX or just career transition in general? The practical application of this is when you're shifting careers, it's really hard. Like it's easy to get discouraged if you don't know why you're doing it. So with me, when I feel like quitting, I always go back to the reason why I started. And when I started to shift to UX, I actually have multiple reasons why. But the top reason of that is, again, going back to my big why of being the best ate in the world. I wanted, I know coming from having been raised by Filipino parents, having been raised around the Filipino culture, I know and I can predict that the younger generation, my cousins that are still in the Philippines, my friends that are still in the Philippines, they are probably going through or will go through the same social pressure and family pressure that I went through. And I want to show them that even if, say, for example, you weren't able to resist the pressure when you were younger, you could still change your path along the way. So I want to show them that it's possible to switch later on and actually succeed to it, or succeed in it. So the next point about on contemplation is challenging your beliefs. So as Filipinos, it's really hard for us to question authority. It's deeply ingrained in our culture to obey and respect our elders. And I think again, there's always a healthy balance between things. For me, what's wrong with obedience is blind obedience when you're just following and not critically thinking if what they're saying or what the other people are saying actually makes sense to you. So I had to, um, I want you to, I encourage you to question where did your beliefs come from? Who gave them to you? What was the reason for giving them to you? What was the context behind that reasoning? So, for example, in my case, I was made to believe that nursing is like the safest way for a Filipino female like me who came from a low middle class family to succeed career wise. And the people that gave that to me are mostly my parents and my relatives or friends who are or have nurse relatives outside of the Philippines that actually succeeded. And I was thinking like what was the context behind that advice or that belief that my parents have. In a way, it was true during their era because during their era there was no internet, so the opportunities are very limited based on your location. So now that internet is here, that doesn't really apply anymore. So that's why we have to challenge our beliefs. Another belief that I had to challenge early on was working overseas, or just this whole idea of loving anything foreign, like again working overseas, loving, or just being fascinated, or it's okay if to be fascinated, but to think that foreign things or foreign countries or foreign people are better than Filipino people or the Philippines as a country. I really need to challenge that, because I've traveled and lived in different countries already, and I never found that to be true. I'm not saying that Filipinos are like more than or better than other nationalities or other countries, but what I'm saying is that we are just equal. Every nationality, every country have their weaknesses and strengths, and as Filipinos, I think it's also really deeply ingrained in us because of the whole colonialism that went on in our country. So we really have to start questioning: is it really true? Another thing was another belief that I need to challenge was the concept of more money equals more success. We all have definition. We all have different definitions of success. Like, yes, for some people it could be money, but it could also be time freedom. It could be the freedom to pursue what you're passionate about, good health, great relationships. Like, all of those could be definitions of success, and it's only you that really could define what is your own definition of success. The next belief is more money equals more happiness. Again, I've been to a lot of countries. I've met so many people. Like, I live in Vietnam. I live in Kuwait. Now I'm here in US, and I've met millionaires. Like, not a lot, but I've met millionaires, and I've met miserable millionaires in the process. And again, that tells me that your money doesn't really equate to happiness. Like, as Filipinos, we're known in the world to be economically poor, but we're also known to be the happiest people on earth. So like, that alone tells me like money doesn't really, it doesn't equate. Yes, there's just enough money that to not make you miserable. You have to have that enough like safety to not be miserable. But after that, it it doesn't really matter anymore. And I think I need to also point this out. There are two beliefs that are related more to women that I also had to kind of like challenge for myself, and I encourage you to challenge it as well. This is the belief of like the definition of beauty. Like, is it really the color of the skin? Is it how high your nose is? Is it having perfect set of teeth? Or is it more on the character? Is it intellect? Like, I really had to like challenge that belief. And also the belief of motherhood. So is it really true that the essence of a woman is being a mother? And is motherhood only limited to mothering your own offsprings? What what if you just want to become the best tita or the best ninang, or how about being a good mentor to youth groups? Like, will that be considered motherhood? So again, the practical use of this type of thinking of challenging your beliefs is one. With me, when I was transitioning, I had to ask: is traditional education the way to go, or is it the non-traditional way of education, like boot camps and vocational schools, or just self-studying? Another practical use is when you're applying to jobs. Like, one of I actually got an advice from a career coach of just blasting out my resumes to all of the job postings I see. Um, but I had to challenge that too, because like, what if that's not my goal? What if I don't want to work in a company that I don't have, I, I'm not passionate about? So I had to challenge that. Is it better to instead focus my efforts in networking and joining hackathons and targeted application? With me, it made more sense to do the latter, the networking and hackathons, because one, I was new in US too when I was doing my UX. So like, not only will I build like a professional network with networking, And I also could build my own personal networks and just having friends. So yeah. Next is this is um, a quote that I really love, and it says, "Watch your thoughts; they become your words. Watch your words; they become your actions. Watch your actions; they become your habits. And watch your habits; they become your character. And watch your character becomes your destiny." So that's just shows how powerful the power of thought is. So it has a domino effect in your life. So another part of the contemplating part is calculating your risk. Again, when transitioning to a different career, you have to um, think about these three things: time, money, and effort. One, time. Do I really have the time to do this? If I don't have the time to do this, what am I willing to sacrifice to achieve the time that I needed to accomplish this? With me, it was mostly nursing, social media browsing, travel, and motherhood. So with nursing, I had to forego practicing nursing because I really want to focus all my energy in studying UX. With social media browsing, I had like I don't get addicted with posting, but with commenting and liking my friends' posts, I feel guilty when I don't like their posts. So but when I do that, I tend they would also like, hey, message me or like, how are you doing? And if I'm not feeling it or I don't have the time to really chit chat, it made me feel guilty. So what I did to really focus on um, staying on track with my social media browsing limits, every time I'm tempted to post or comment into a post, I would always ask myself, in a year's time, would my post or my comment matter? So if the answer is no, I don't post it. I don't comment. So when it comes to motherhood, it's also when you're trying to figure out about again transitioning or doing anything big in your life, you have to ask, will I and my spouse be happy to postpone this? Like, can I afford to postpone this? So those are the things you want to ask yourself. Another thing was money. So you have to assess, you have to calculate your risk. Do I have enough emergency savings that I can sacrifice not earning money for the next 3 months or 6 months or 2 years or whatever? Where can I get additional funds to fund my transition? Do I apply for scholarships? Do I do side gigs? Do I do X deals? The third thing is effort. The thing that I'm transitioning to, would I really enjoy this? Is this something aligned with my strengths and my passion? With me, UX was a clear winner because I love organizing. Again, as I said, I could be very well be Marie Kondo. I love psychology. Psychology was my favorite subject in nursing. I love photography. I was doing photography longer than I was doing nursing, and I like the business side of things. So it all of my strengths and my passion aligned with kind of like the building block of a good UX designer. So what's the practical use again with calculated risk? Again, as I've said, when you're transitioning to a career, you have to define your risk with time, with money, and effort. With time, do you want to work full time, part time, contract, volunteer work? For money, if you can't earn the money that you need to pay for your say basic necessities, are there other people in your life that could carry the burden, like your spouse or something? And then effort, what type of effort you want to put into either studying or doing side gigs? Can you do a part-time employment, or can you only do a consulting type of work? So just to recap, the we already that's the contemplate part, and now we move on to connect, the second C. So let me know on the comments if you've read or heard of any of these quotes. So you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. Second, you're the product of your environment. Surround yourself with the best. Third, people inspire you or they will drain you. Pick them wisely. So as human beings, we have the need to belong. It's ingrained in all of us. As human evolve, belonging to a tribe means survival. So back in prehistoric times, if you're alone, foraging for food, and a tiger attacks you, you don't have a way to survive, or your survival is very limited. That's why as humans we evolve as belonging to a group, and this had also been observed by Maslow's and also by behavioral economists. So the first point I wanna point out with connect is connecting with people. Again, the purpose of connecting with people is create a sense of safety and security and the feeling of being loved and accepted. So when you do that, choose people wisely. So choose quality people. And when I say quality, I'm not referring to people with money or fame. When I say quality, I mean authentic people who supports you and push you to be better, and people who are also who could be honest and critical of you when you want, or when you need to see the ugly truth. So I personally have a set of friends that are mostly optimistic and likes to talk about ideas and the possibilities. And I have another set of friends that are mostly pessimistic and likes to gossip about people. So when I can call the shots on who I want to spend my time with, I always go for the first group of people. So this goes with your same with your when you're choosing a partner in life, or with choosing which family member you want to be around with. Like you really have to protect your mental state. So when people are negative, learn to set boundaries. So this is a quote that I actually made that I gave my sister and my younger friends and cousins. I said, if you're going to be peer pressured, choose good peers so you'll be pressured to do the right things. So again, peer pressure is real, and not only that, like social osmosis is real too. Like you get, even if they're not really pressuring you, just the thought that um, you belong to a group of good quality people, it kind of makes you want to be a good quality person as well. Excuse me. And another benefit of connecting with people is learning what to do and what not to do. So examples of networking activities are networking events like this one, joining on online groups, joining alumni associations, church, volunteer work again. And again, what's the practical usage of connecting with people? One, as I've said earlier, is just overall motivation. Two, finding work. All of the work that I've recently had all came from networking, either through hackathons or attending meetups. All of them came from networking. Third is getting UX research participants. So as a UX designer, one of the hardest things you're gonna encounter is finding willing participants to answer your surveys or interviews without being paid. So the more you have, the more friends you have, the better of you finding these people who will be willing to do that for you. So second point, connecting the dots. So not only is connecting with people important, connecting the dots um, is important too. Which connecting the dots basically is identifying patterns. As like what Steve just said, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only do it backwards. So what you want, what you like in life, what you don't like in life, what's beneficial to you, what isn't. So later at the end of the presentation, I will discuss how I was able to do it in my personal life, but for practical use in the UX world, connecting the dots is basically identifying user behavior using behavioral patterns. So, like the our keynote speaker for a while ago said, the better your underlying data is, the better your design will be. So the third C. So we're done with the first C, contemplate. We're done with connect, And now we're moving on to the third C, which is create. So Einstein famously said, nothing happens until something moves. Again, let that sink in. Nothing happens until something moves. So Einstein is actually not the first one to say this. It's a restatement of Newton's first law of motion, which is inertia. So an object at rest stays at rest, and an object in motion stays in motion with the same speed and same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. So in simplistic terms, it just says do it. Do something, start something. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. Start with something small, like this, joining a virtual conference. That's already a thing that it's already starting something. Plant a green onion or a pet shy. Fix your bed, wear a different hairstyle. With me, one of the silly things I tried before that kind of like roll over to me trying other things is actually wearing clothes in a different way. So you know how if you're wearing a shirt, you typically put your head first and then your arms next. And then there's this one time, because I used to have really long hair. Then there's this one time I have my hair wrapped around in like a towel after shower. And I just like thinking, is there a better way to wear my shirt? Basically, actually a tank top without having to remove my towel. So I started thinking, I'm a very petite woman, so like my hips are almost the same size as my chest part. It's like maybe I could wear my tank top from bottom up, so I would wear it almost like wearing pants. I would wear it from through my feet and then pull it up onto my shoulders, and then I slide my arms out. And that actually led me to thinking of other ways I could wear other articles of clothing, like a maxi skirt. I learned how to use it as a mini dress by just pulling it up all the way to my chest and then just putting a belt around the waistband. And when I travel, it's really helpful because I don't have to bring so many different types of garments and still have like a variety of things to wear. So again, those are just some benefits of creating or doing something. And here are also the ways or benefits of doing that. As I've said, you already see things differently. So when you see things differently, you see opportunities that you don't typically see or you haven't seen before. As Pinoys, we're known to be we're known for our ingenuity and resourcefulness, and they said necessity breeds ingenuity, which I agree, and I can personally attest to that. And here are some of the examples of Filipino ingenuity that I recently found and had been one of my favorites. So this one, it's a makeshift bike in Guimaras or from Guimaras. I was just thinking maybe when the inventor of this was making it or before making it, he was like looking at a spare of wood in his backyard and some mismatched wheels from old bikes and thinking, maybe I only need chain and gears and I could make a bike out of this. And then another one, it's a refrigerator boat in Leyte. So again, in my head, I was thinking the inventor was contemplating, well, fridge are basically a sophisticated styrofoam box. And what does styrofoam do? They float. So there you go, you have a boat. And then you probably heard of her and her invention, sorry. It's called salt lamp. And the inventor is Isa Mihano. She's a female engineer who created the salt-powered lamp with her brother. Again, it's more complicated than that, but basically, when I was thinking how she came up with this idea of building it, I was like, maybe she was thinking, salt is an electrolyte. Electrolyte conduct and produce electricity. And what does Philippines have in abundance? Salt water. So there. And then next thing is when you start creating things or doing things differently, you started to see patterns. So like again, in this case, I was just thinking, maybe when they first created the salt lamp, they thought, oh, electricity can power a lamp. Therefore, electricity can power a cell phone. And recently, I was able to use this seeing patterns effect of creating and doing things through explaining to my business development people in my team how is coding or what is design frameworks. So because our dev team have a hard time explaining to them, so I have to come up with ideas on how to make them appreciate design frameworks. So I basically told them, so a design framework is kind of like a cake mix. Coding from scratch is kind of like buying everything in the market, buying all the ingredients yourself, measuring them yourself, and then mixing them all up. But having a framework is kind of it's kind of like having a cake mix. Everything is already there. You just have to, again, do the cooking and putting, customizing it. But like the base is already there, and that really helped them understood why having a design framework is important. And so the last benefit that I would talk about regarding creating and doing stuff is that one thing leads to another. So it's either by luck or by choice. Again, nothing is 100% controllable, and progress doesn't work in a straight line. But once you put effort into it, there's more predictability, and in your heart, you'll feel less regrets because you know that you've done your best, and whatever happens is something already out of your control. So those are the three C's: contemplate, connect, and create. But I just want to iterate that this is not a step-by-step process. Everyone has different circumstances and ways of learning, and some might learn more by doing first, some might learn more by watching others first, or some would learn more by just doing it themselves, thinking on their own how to solve problems. But at the end of the day, what's important is you embrace your uniqueness. Again, all of us are very different. So as long as you embrace your uniqueness, you'll be fine. So at this point, you're probably like thinking, so what or how did your Kuwait experience end up? Remember, I was at that stage where my employer wasn't paying me, and then I saw the Steve Jobs video. So basically, what I did was I wrote a letter to the legal column of the biggest newspaper or one of the biggest newspaper in Kuwait to ask for advice. My intention was I was just gonna ask advice to know if what I'm experiencing is or what my employer is doing to me is legal. When they responded and they confirmed that it was illegal, it gave me the confidence to fight back. So yeah, I decided to fight back. My original intention was just to get the money that my employer owes me. But the unintended effect of fighting back was that my contract was cut short, and I was actually sent back to the Philippines, paid for by my employer. So it was really funny. It was the eve of New Year of 2012. So like when the year was switching from 2011 to 2012, I was falling in line in the airport to go back to the Philippines. And another unintended effect of fighting back also is I got the chance to start a new life quicker, or sooner than later. So when I came back to the Philippines, I joined the business group, and I also got into sales and marketing job for my full time work. So when I got into this job and group, my only thinking initially was to just earn money and learn business on the side. So if my full time work doesn't work, I have another thing to fall back on. But the unintended effect of that is that I was able to hone my people skills, and I got to meet many other highly motivated, highly inspirational people along the way. And that's also how I met my husband, who introduced me to travel. So I met my husband, or when I met my husband and started traveling around the Philippines, the only intention, my initial intention was just to learn other cultures, and for him possibly to be my business partner if I decided to go into business later on. So it was kind of like uh, very strategic. Just to give you a background, my husband is like he's very well traveled. He's from a different country, and he's also from a different religion. So I like mental simulation, and when I found him, I was like, oh, he's a good way to like kind of like give me the mental simulation I need. So the unintended effect of meeting my husband and traveling around Philippines is that I developed the confidence for spontaneous travel, and also it gave me the confidence to live or travel again overseas, because after Kuwait I got really scared to go out of the country. I feel like the world is such an unsafe place for me. So after that, we then lived in Vietnam, and then we traveled around Southeast Asia. The initial intention for doing so is to start an English language school, because like most Vietnamese couldn't really or don't have a good command in English. So both, because I can do it and my husband can do it too, or he was my boyfriend at that time. We were thinking maybe we could set up our own language school, and also mostly for leisure. I just really want to explore the world, and having somebody beside me who knows what he's doing is helpful. But the unintended effect of living overseas and traveling around different countries is that I saw other possibilities for me, for my career. I saw different or other possibilities of places I could live. And also, I I started formulating business ideas that either existing in other countries that haven't been brought into the Philippines, or in my case, I thought of a business idea that is catered to overseas Filipinos because of the amount of Filipinos I've met through my travels. So then I formulated a business plan catered to overseas Filipinos, and it was good timing because at that time, there was like a global entrepreneurship summit open application, and I said, when I applied to that, again, my two intentions was to validate my business idea and to use that as a way to visit US because it was held in Stanford. I have my family here in US during that time, so and I haven't seen them in a while, so I wanted to use that as a way to visit them. But the unintended effect of that, again, it was held in Silicon Valley, and most of the people that delivered their talks are from the big tech companies in Silicon Valley. And it really hit me, the realization of software is eating the world really hit me hard because of that. So then I moved to US, got married, moved to US, and attended and volunteered at tech meetups. So again, my intention was to practice nursing while figuring out what software career I would transition to. The unintended effect of that is because of all the meetups I attended, I found out about UX design. I've never heard of UX design prior to 2017. So I decided to jump into study mode and studied UX design full time. And lastly, joining hackathons. So I joined hackathons, and I also kept networking with people. So my intention with that is find people who would be willing to create a life project with me. So it was actually because of an early interview with a Facebook recruiter. She said for junior designers, they require them to have at least two live projects before they can get into Facebook. And I was like, I'm not that good enough with coding. I know I won't be able to ship a product on my own. So I started looking at hackathons to find people who might be willing to develop a product with me and hopefully ship it so I could put that in my resume. But the unintended effect of joining hackathons is I actually met or found my future bosses through these hackathons, either directly or indirectly. So some of them are my future bosses were um, uh, a mentor in one of the hackathons. Another one was a judge in one hackathon, and one was actually I met through networking. I attended like a startup network event, but because he saw, I befriended him during the networking, and he saw on my LinkedIn that I've been winning hackathons. So he approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to work? Do you want to work for me?" So there, and the other the other unintended effect of winning hackathons is also exposure, because of the awards I received, getting a lot of attention in LinkedIn mostly. And I am actually suspecting that the reason why I was invited to speak to this event right now is because of those hackathon wins that I had recently. So I wish I can actually tell you that it was a smooth ride, but it was actually it wasn't. And in between triumphs, there were more setbacks. So progress is never a straight line. In my case, I have multiple visa issues. I have income stability. I had relationship conflicts with my family health issues. I struggled with coding. I almost actually didn't finish my UX and front end development program on time. I failed a bunch of job applications. And then as I'm just starting my career, pandemic hits. So now it's very uncertain what's going to happen with me. But I think the biggest struggle that I had to go through and still going through is my internal personal battles. So the imposter syndrome is really big on me. Like even after winning all these awards, I still question is like, do I just get really lucky, or do I really have the chops to be a UX designer? Like I still battle with that. Like if I deserve what I have now, and if I can actually provide the work that's needed from a UX designer. So what I could say that is just keep pushing. This is what I tell myself to, and I wanna tell you too is just keep pushing. Enjoy the journey, and enjoy the journey, not just the destination, or better yet, enjoy the journey more than the destination. So this is my last slide, and this is what I wanna leave you with. This is my favorite quote from the 2016 Global Entrepreneurship Summit. And it's funny that it actually came from a Google founder. So this is said by, is it Sergey Brin or Sergey Brin? I'm not sure. He said, failure doesn't matter, nor does success. It's really the privilege to pursue your dreams that matters. So with that, again, thank you all for your time, and I hope you got something out of what I shared. Questions, comments, suggestions?
Okay. Thank you so much, Miss Cheeky, for your talk. Grabe, I was so inspired with your journey that despite the challenges, there were a lot of challenges that you went through, but still, like you said earlier, you have to enjoy the journey. Not for You have to enjoy the journey more than the destination. So thank you so much for that. It's really, really inspiring. And I'm pretty sure that our participants as well, our viewers also have a lot of questions. So let's start with the first one. Which one is better? High salary but toxic environment, or a peaceful environment but a low salary?
So again, this boils down. By the way, thank you for whoever sent that question. Again, it always boils down to your own risk. So as they're saying, there's like two different sets of like kind of like thoughts on this. Some said high salary, especially if you're young, do the high salary and toxic environment because you can emotionally take it more because you have less, like you have less responsibilities at home. Like less more likely that you have your own kids or you have aging parents and stuff. And some also, but some people said it's better to have peaceful environment at first, so you don't get discouraged, even if it's low salary. So again, it really boils down to what you can take. That's why it's really important to contemplate, to really know your why. Because again, if you know your why, even if it's a toxic environment, you gonna keep pushing. Like if your why is like, hey, my parents need the money because my parents are sick, so even if it's a toxic environment, you're gonna pursue it because you need the money for it. So yeah, it really depends on your situation.
Okay. So it depends on your priorities
Priority.
on which you prefer. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Next question is, what is the main challenge for someone who graduated from a non-tech degree to transition in the tech or UX or you design field?
For me, the main challenge is kind of like convincing people that you're in it for the good reasons. So now there's actually a lot of talk in LinkedIn about um, especially people who went to boot camps, because like a lot of like senior designers are saying like people who went through boot camp are kind of like expecting to be paid right away with high salary without having to go through so much training. So in a way, you really have to prove that you didn't go to UX just because you want the high salary. You're in it for the good reason. So I think that's the main challenge.
Thank you. Next question. Do you have advice for someone who is looking for an opportunity in other countries? And is it too risky for someone who is starting in this industry?
So in this industry, let me just read the question again. Do you have advice for someone who is looking for an opportunity in other countries? Too risky for again. That's the beauty with tech, because you can most of the time you can work remotely. So it kind of like not negate but lessen the chance of you being exploited by working or when you're working in other countries. So is it too risky? Again, it really depends on the risk that you could take. My risk might be different from your risk. So you really have to assess it on your own.
Okay, thank you. Next question. What advice can you give to those introverts to try to network or connect with people?
This is actually this is really interesting because like before I started or before I found out about UX, I was actually going to networking events, say like three nights in a week. So like I did that for continuously 2 months. Like, and I've noticed like for introverts, the best thing I would advise is there there's always a group in introverts in the room. So the best thing is to just try and approach
Yeah.
the same introverts because you're
Yes,
probably kind of like you know how they feel, and both of you would have the same kind of like, at least somebody like somebody understands what I feel and how knows how
the
intimidating this
same group
process
of
is.
introverts.
Yeah.
So it's nice to have, even though you're introvert, so most of the people have assumed that introverts like to be alone, but it's really nice to have like a group of introverts along with you in the
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Having traveled and lived in many countries, was there ever a time you had trouble incorporating your designs and research due to cultural differences?
Yes. So I haven't really worked with a lot of projects from like in different countries. Mostly I'm just working on US based and Philippine based projects. But I could really see the difference, or the, what do you call this, the trouble of incorporating designs in research to due to the cultural difference. Let me just give you an example. So in my current project with the Philippines, we were thinking of incorporating a chatbot, and I was like thinking that will be, or somebody said it's gonna be really hard here because like we have different dialects. So like, if say for example the, uh what do you call this, if somebody, because in chatbots you kind of want to track to if they're, if your users are going against the policy. So it's gonna be really hard for you to do that, or just that chat option if somebody's using a different language and it's not part of the machine learning. Like if somebody start typing a Visayan word or Cebuano word, like how are you gonna do that? But in English you don't really have that, or in US you don't really have that problem because everyone speaks in English. So yeah, there's
Mhm.
definitely problems with incorporating your designs and research. That's why research is really important. You just don't jump into like wireframing and designing. You really have to do research.
Research. Right, right. Okay, thank you. Next is being a creative or knowledgeable in design programs an advantage in being a UX designer.
It is, in a way that you won't get intimidated with the the software. So for me, that was like the big advantage because I'm into photography and I've been doing using Photoshop again as longer actually than I was practicing nursing. So when I jumped to UX design, the tools that there were, that are asked of us to use weren't intimidating for me. So that part of design was an easy transition for me. So yeah, I would say it is an advantage.
Okay, nice. Next question. What advice can you give to people who have small resources but have big dreams?
Be creative. This is where you can actually use your creativity. So that was also my struggle before because, like, as I've said, I didn't come from a well-to-do family. So I tried contacting like I was thinking, like, for example, I'm just gonna give an example. Say you don't have resource to like study in a boot camp or traditional education. Again, there's so many free online ways to educate yourself. And one way is actually joining hackathons if you already have kind of like a working knowledge. There are hackathons, especially now because of the pandemic. The hackathons that were only available, say, to US are now available to everyone. So like I have one of the hackathons that I joined. The prices were actually around $4,000. So in just 2 days, you could actually earn that and use that for your other goals. So again, you really have to use your creativity when finding opportunities, especially if again you don't have resources. You might not have monetary resources, but you have your brain as a resource. So use that.
Okay, thank you. So we have last question. What resources did you have in transitioning to the UX career? You have your personal resources.
Well, what do you mean resources? Like books or can
Yeah,
you?
books or webinars, or how did you improve your UX skills?
So yeah, I do a lot of YouTubes, mostly tutorials because I'm more of like I learn I learn by doing. So if I like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm designing, I first actually I try to do it on my own first. If I can't do it on my own, then I switch to like YouTube And my last would I would say books. Like still use them, but for me they're
Mm.
not that effective because I easily fall asleep when I read books. So this is the reason why you really have to know your strengths, because that's when you know what is more effective to you as a resource when you're transitioning to UX career or any type of career, really.
So it pays to be really resourceful because the
Yep.
internet is also available for resources as well for everyone. Yeah. Okay. So that's the last of our questions. Thank you so much,